I want you to think about the most experienced person in your organization right now, the one who's been on more jobs than anyone can count, the one people go to when something goes sideways on site, not because they have the title, but because they have the answer. Now ask yourself, if that person left tomorrow, retirement or otherwise, what happens to everything they know? Not their technical certifications, not the procedures they follow. I'm talking about the stuff that isn't written down anywhere. How they read a site before a problem shows up. How they manage a subcontractor who's falling behind without blowing up the relationship. How they know, before the engineer does, that something in the drawing isn't going to work in the field. That knowledge took decades to build, and in most construction companies, there is no plan to capture it before it's gone. We'll replace the headcount, we'll post the job, but the knowledge? That leaves with the person, and it doesn't come back. In the last episode, we talked about making career paths visible so your best people stay. Today, we're going one level deeper, because keeping people is only half the equation. The other half is making sure that what your experienced people know actually transfers to the people coming up behind them. That's knowledge transfer, and it's the single most underfunded, underprioritized capability in the industry. I'm Angelo Suntres. This is the human side of construction. Let's get into it. You're not just losing people, you're losing wisdom. We covered the labor shortage numbers in an earlier episode. I'm not going to repeat them. What I want to zero in on is the thing that numbers don't capture. It's not just bodies leaving the industry. It's judgment. It's institutional knowledge. It's the ability to look at a problem on site and know what to do, not because you read it in the manual or the process, but because you've been through it before and you know what works, and more importantly, what doesn't. Knowledge encompasses not only how to do the job correctly and efficiently, but also how not to do the job, and that second part is arguably more valuable. Knowing what fails, what creates rework, what triggers safety incidents, that's hard-won wisdom, and it can't be taught in a classroom. And right now, the industry is letting it evaporate. Every construction company has this knowledge. It lives inside its most experienced people. The question is whether it's being treated as an organizational asset or a personal trait that belongs to one person and disappears when they do. So if the knowledge is that valuable, why isn't it transferring? Because it doesn't happen by accident. Osmosis is not a strategy. The default assumption in most construction companies is that knowledge transfers naturally. Put a young worker near an experienced one and they'll absorb it. Stick them to the same crew and the wisdom will flow. It doesn't, not reliably. Not at the speed or scale that the industry needs right now. Knowledge transfer is an active process. It requires intention, structure, and time. And here's the part that's hard to hear. Both sides have to want it. And right now, there are real barriers on both sides. You've heard experienced workers say, these kids don't want to learn. They're always on their phones. And you've heard the younger workers say, these old heads don't want to teach me. They're gatekeeping information to stay relevant. Neither side is entirely wrong. And here's the result most organizations. Both sides throw their hands up and nothing moves. That's the stalemate the industry is stuck in. And it won't break without leadership deliberately stepping in to create the conditions for knowledge to move. That means giving experienced people a reason and a framework to share what they know, and giving younger people the tools and the trust to build and receive it. It doesn't happen organically, it has to be built. And the primary tool for building it is mentorship, but not the kind most companies think they have. Most mentorship in construction is informal and inconsistent. A senior person takes a liking to a newer worker, shows them the ropes for a while, and eventually they drift apart or the project ends. That's not mentorship, that's proximity. Real mentorship requires three things most construction companies don't invest in. Number one, intentional matching. Pair people based on not just a trait or discipline, but on communication style, personality, and what both parties actually need from the relationship. A mentorship is not an apprenticeship, it's broader than technical skills. Sometimes the best mentorship happens cross-functionally between field and office, across completely different roles. Number two, equipping the mentor. Here's where most programs fail. You take your best technical person and make them a mentor, but nobody teaches them how to do it. Knowing the work and being able to transfer that knowledge to another human are two completely different skills. If the mentor can't connect, communicate, and teach, the knowledge stays locked up. The relationship fails and both sides walk away thinking the whole thing was a waste of time. Third, accountability and follow-through. A mentorship program that starts strong and then gets forgotten is worse than no program at all, because it signals to your people that development isn't actually a priority. Someone needs to own the program, check in on the relationships, and create space for honest feedback about what's working and what isn't. Done right, mentorship is not a soft initiative. It's an operational investment in preserving the knowledge your company runs on. Done wrong, it's a checkbox that breeds cynicism. And here's where it gets interesting. because mentorship doesn't only flow in one direction. Here's the part nobody talks about: reverse mentorship. Everything we talked about so far assumes knowledge flows from experience to emerging, and that's the primary direction. But here I want to introduce you to something worth sitting with: reverse mentorship. Your younger workers know things your experienced people don't: technology, software, new methods, communication tools, sustainable practices. They bring a different lens to problems, partly because they haven't been doing it the same way for 30 years. Picture a veteran project manager paired with a young colleague who lives inside the project management software and collaborative platforms. The younger person streamlines how the team communicates and tracks progress. The veteran shares decades of relationship management and field judgment. Both walk away sharper. That's not theory, that's a competitive advantage. But reverse mentorship only works if the experienced person is willing to learn from someone with less tenure. And in construction, where hierarchy and seniority are deeply embedded, that's a cultural shift. It requires leaders at the top to model it, to signal that learning is a two-way street, and that a 25-year-old can teach a 55-year-old something worth knowing. When that happens, something important shifts in your culture. Younger workers feel valued, not just tolerated. Experienced workers stay engaged and relevant instead of just counting down to retirement, and the organization gets the benefit of both, which is the entire point. So here's where I want to leave you today. The structures you build will stand for decades, but the knowledge that built them, the judgment, the instinct, the hard-won lessons about what works and what doesn't, that has an expiry date, and the clock is ticking. Knowledge transfer is not something that happens on its own. It doesn't flow through proximity or good intentions. It requires deliberate action from leaders who understand that the most valuable thing in their organization is not on the balance sheet, it's in the heads of their people. Here's one thing I want you to do. Identify one critical piece of knowledge in your organization that currently lives with one person. One thing, if they left tomorrow, would create a real gap. And then start the conversation about how that knowledge gets shared before it has to. Don't wait until the retirement lunch. By then, it's a goodbye, not a transfer. I'm Angelo Suntres. This is the human side of construction. Let's get to work. There's a lot to do. If you're a leader in the construction industry and want to discuss how you are addressing workforce challenges in your organizations, or if you have a construction experience that you want to share with the world, we want to hear from you. Reach out to me at angelo@hsoc.one, that's ANGELO @hsoc.one, to see how we can work together.